Olá, amigos! Hoje nós vamos falar com Geoff Newton, um grande amigo, terapeuta inglês que está no Brasil há algum tempo e uma pessoa extremamente simpática, extremamente alegre, extrovertida, e ele logicamente tem uma grande experiência nessa área e eu tenho tido o privilégio de conversar com ele sobre alguns dos assuntos importantes aí para a nossa vida. Hoje a gente vai falar um pouco sobre o efeito da solidão, o efeito de estar só, que segundo ele não necessariamente é uma coisa negativa, pode ser uma coisa positiva dependendo da maneira como você trata desse tema. Então, acompanhe aqui o que o meu amigo Geoff tem para compartilhar com vocês sobre esse tema tão interessante.
Thank you very much, Gilberto.
Thank you.
Lovely introduction.
Yeah. Today we're going to talk about the effects of loneliness. And you know, perhaps I think you agree with me, Geoff, that people today are more connected than ever. However, it seems that many of us, from all walks of life of every age, are emerging into loneliness. Do you believe that?
Yeah, I think this is a very intriguing topic because, like you say, that we're probably more connected than we ever dreamed we could be. Certainly we are. For somebody living in Brazil, away from my family and friends, yet I can follow their lives on Facebook and Instagram. So I'm very connected to my family. More than 30 years ago, it would have been a letter or a postcard. For the younger generation, they won't understand this. So yeah, we're more connected, but yet we're becoming more lonely. And there is research on this in the UK, that more and more children are experiencing loneliness. How can we be so connected and yet feel so lonely? And also, is it okay to feel lonely? You know, when we say loneliness, we automatically, I certainly do, and from my work with my clients, there has a negative connotation. And yet as a therapist and as a human being who's experienced loneliness throughout my life, I don't see it as a negative anymore. I see it as a positive and a negative, depending on how it's viewed and depending how it's experienced. So I think we are becoming lonelier, I think because of the disconnection, because of the social media. I think when I look back at my life, if we wanted to go to a football match on a Saturday morning, say for instance, we would have to meet up to arrange it. So we would all meet up, say, right, are we going to football? And then when we went to the football, we would make arrangements to meet up again because nobody had mobile phones. So we was always constantly saying, what are you doing next week? Where are you going next week? So we were all looking forward to meeting up, making arrangements for the next time. I work online with clients from London. And although it works, I definitely noticed the difference between working with a client online and a client in face-to-face, one-to-one. I noticed my feelings that come up in me are often a reflection of their feelings, and I can reflect them to my clients, and often they will say, that's how I'm feeling. And that happens quite a lot in therapy. You know, on Skype it doesn't happen. I don't get that feeling of connectedness, and that tells me something. If I'm not getting it as a therapist online, then how are our children getting it? I think loneliness and isolation are obviously linked. But if you ask, we had research recently where one of the care workers in England shut himself away from society for 3 weeks, I think it was. And he experienced mental health issues, extreme painful loneliness and isolation. And he said that at the end of the research was that if this is what our elderly people are going through, they're not surprising that they're having so many difficulties. If you are isolated and you're not okay with loneliness, then you can experience mental health issues. If you're lonely and you like yourself and you experience time with yourself, you become comfortable with yourself. Therefore, when you grow older and you're okay with your own company, I'm not talking about isolation, this is loneliness, you tend to find things to do, you've got interest and you go out and do stuff. When people become isolated, that's a different thing. The problem with isolation, it can be self-feeding, self-fulfilling. And then it can become a phobia. You become scared of going out. So although they're separate, they're linked. And I really do believe that throughout our life, we have to learn to be okay with being lonely. And if you think about it, think of the Buddhists. They spend hours and hours alone in self-reflection, self-thought, introspection, and they become really okay with that. And why can they become okay with it and it be a negative? So it really is how we view it, definitely how we view it. One of our life's goals as human beings should be okay with ourselves, which then would allow us to be okay with loneliness. I think it was Jung said that, that we look to the stars when the universe is inside of us, and more importantly, to know ourselves. And if we don't know ourselves, and we don't allow ourselves to know ourselves, how can we feel okay with ourselves? And then lies the question, we become lonely.
Geoff, what is the fear of loneliness causing to people?
In my work, I often hear my clients in one-to-one sessions saying their biggest fear is being alone at the end of their life. And then in family and couples work, we get people staying together rather than separating because of the fear of loneliness and the fear of isolation. It's almost like human beings are not happy with what they're doing, but the fear of isolation, fear of being alone, fear of loneliness will keep them doing the same thing, although it's not healthy for them, which I find fascinating. It's like we're not happy with what we know, but we'll keep doing what we know because I know it. And if you think, what are the fears? Are the fears rational? I think when you become okay with yourself and confront loneliness to the point where you become okay with being alone, I think then you can make choices that are based on functional thinking rather than dysfunctional thinking. If we become dysfunctional in our thinking when we get caught up in a rut where we just go around in circles. And I think the fear of being alone, I think the fear of loneliness and the fear of isolation are very, very powerful in today's world. And learning to be okay feeling lonely. And even isolation up to a certain extent should be okay, as long as you're okay with yourself. But then remembering that human beings are social animals, that we need to be connected to other human beings. And that doesn't mean through technology, because in my experience, it doesn't give us what we need. And a good friend will always challenge you. My best friends challenge me. When I come up with an idea or I've got a problem in my life, my best friends will say, Geoff, do you know what? I think you're wrong here. Now that's what I need to hear. And I think, again, that we've got to put down the mobile phone, put down the tablet, get out there, go for coffees, put the phone down, don't take your phone. Learn to sort of converse with each other, learn to be honest, learn to be able to take criticism and self-criticism. Because again, if you become comfortable with yourself, you see your different facets and to polish your facets. The facets are the parts of us that are grown from our experience. And, it's very easy to dislike ourselves and parts of ourselves. But we've got to understand that we're just the same as everybody else. Therefore, it's okay to look at these parts of ourselves that maybe we don't like so much. But we need people to discover ourselves. We can't do this alone. If you think about it, you must have experienced this, Gilberto, in your life. You have a problem that spins around in your head. And the old cliche, a problem shared is a problem halved. You have a problem, you speak to a friend, the problem dissipates, and then it becomes more seeable. You can see it for what it is. It's not this big thing that's going around in your head. And you can only get this from being social. You can only get this from looking at yourself. and learning for you what works. And I think that's how we find the balance. There's nothing wrong with texting your friends, but text them to meet them, not text them to talk to them and not meet them. You know, that's where it becomes unhealthy. And that's where we lose the ability to find ourselves and be connected. You know, if you want to go to a therapist at 40 years of age because you've never done these things and pay a fair amount of money to try and find yourself again, and the longer you get lost, the harder it is to find yourself, then carry on with what you're doing. But eventually I think you will come to that point where you'll ask the questions, who am I? What am I doing? What is the meaning of life? Now these are really important. And if we don't know ourselves, how can we know another human being? So like these questions I think are really important, and if we can try and answer them with friends and you know, maybe group meetings or whatever we do, even just sports, football, and I know you like football and stuff, you know, having discussions after the game with friends and stuff. I think this is really important. It's very, very important. And we need to do more of it, I think, and then we can find a balance.
You certainly have noticed how much we Brazilians love happy hours. In fact, people all over the world love happy hours. What's the good thing about happy hours for people?
Yeah, I think happy hour can be a very important part of integration and socialising. I'm all up for happy hour, but just leave your phones in your pockets, don't drink too much, and use it as a way of learning about yourselves and each other. And I think it's a wonderful tool, wonderful tool. Good luck.